Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to join you today virtually. Um, and I'm happy to tell you a little bit about an amazing program that DePaul started a few years ago. I'm the Assistant Director of Special Programs at DePaul University. These are my flags of Chicago and DePaul behind me in my virtual background. And one of the favorite things that I do is a program that's virtual, intercultural, interdisciplinary. It's called the Global Conversations. And if I can share my screen, are you, are you able to see it?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Um, so in March of 2020, as I'm sure many of us will remember forever, the world was facing the pandemic. Students were instructed to take classes over video conferencing platforms like Zoom. Study abroad trips were canceled. Many were just very disappointed. It was a very isolating time for everyone. And staff in our Office of Global Engagement at DePaul were trying to make sense of the pandemic, but also wanted to find ways for students to make meaning and make global connections. So our Associate Provost for Global Engagement and Online Learning, Dr. John Mario Basana, thought of an accessible, free, and simple format for students to meet one another around common topics. So 13 sessions were initially created back in May of 2020 is when they finally were launched. And all of the sessions were focused on how the world was impacted by COVID-19. So the global conversations are 90-minute interdisciplinary virtual Zoom sessions designed by an international faculty team with the goal to get students from a variety of national, cultural, and linguistic backgrounds talking to one another about a global issue. The way that the sessions are structured begin with the faculty teams made up of anywhere from 2 to possibly 4 faculty members from different institutions, introduce a topic for a discussion, and then somehow turn the session over to students to talk to one another. And so the intention is that students connect, learn from one another by dialoguing and listening, and not to listen to a faculty lecture or presentation. So the process for generating global conversation topics, it included inviting DePaul and international faculty members to propose a session topic based on their areas of expertise or just a field of interest. And in the beginning, we sent invitations to our partner institutions, the strongest ones being in areas like Brazil, Australia, India, and the United Kingdom, and a few others. But now word is beginning to spread and more institutions are learning about the global conversations, and we have faculty from over 57 different institutions, every region of the world. So faculty work sometimes in interdisciplinary teams, those who propose a session without a partner, which does happen. We always encourage faculty to find a team and propose a topic as a team. But there are a few who say, I don't have any international partners, and therefore we try and make teams and they rework their session title and purpose. Sometimes faculty members come from different educational fields, but their topic of discussion intersects. For example, we recently paired a professor in the School of Education at UDEM in Mexico with a faculty member in our School of Science and Health, because their session topic is relevant to both of them in different ways. This particular session is titled Inclusion Strategies in the World of Work for the Elderly. And so one faculty member teaches future teachers about inclusion strategies and working with elderly, and the other is a public health gerontologist. And once the teams are formed, the faculty members then invite their own students to join the conversation, either from their current class or from past classes. And they might offer extra credit or hold a session during their class time. Also, international education departments at participating institutions promote the conversations to the entire student body. So students participate through direct faculty invitation or because they just see a list of conversations and then sign up.
Emily, oh, sorry. Okay, sorry for interrupting. We thought that the slides are not moving, but now they're moving.
Yes, yeah. So this is the list of the first group of some of the first global conversations from our first session. So as you can see, they were all focused on COVID-19 in some way. So how COVID-19 is impacting a variety of sectors and disciplines in the world. These are just a few of the 13 first sessions that we had. And I'll show you in a few minutes some of the titles of the sessions, because they have evolved and they're no longer just focused on the pandemic. And this slide gives you a sense of how they have grown and how many students, faculty, and institutions have been impacted by each round of global conversation. So we have them twice a year in our October, and then sometimes in May and April. They tend to overlap the last week of April, the first week of May. So in total, we've had 96 sessions. We have another upcoming round at the end of April. We've engaged with over 2,600 students. And as you can see, the number of students has grown each round. And the number of faculty members, we've reached 200 faculty members and industry experts. There's been a couple of invited industry experts who are not faculty members at institutions. And they've come from 57 different institutions. Now, the number of faculty members have been repeated, so this number is unique. Some of the same faculty members are coming back and presenting each round. The number of students here, over 2,600, that number is not unique. We're counting the number of participations. And just to get a sense of where the students are coming from, this pie chart shows where the students' country of origin, or I'm sorry, citizenship is. So we collect data after every round, and students will tell us where they're coming from. And it shows that we have now hit 65 different countries over the past 6 rounds. The largest pieces of this pie, because the words might be quite small, but the largest pieces of the pie, the students show are from United States, Brazil, Mexico, India, and Nigeria. We have some amazing faculty partners in those regions who really promote the sessions each round. So as I mentioned, the global conversations are evolving, not to talk specifically about COVID-19, but here's the list of some of the session titles. And I chose the more popular ones or some of the more unique ones that have taken place over the last 6 rounds. It shows that the topics cover a variety of disciplines, as you can see. And through the students' reflections, they show in our data that they continue to look for intercultural experiences. They're looking to meet and learn from others all over the world. As the pandemic has become less imminently threatening to many parts of the world, they're still interested in talking about various global topics. And in countries where English is not the dominant language, some students have shown that they're very interested in practicing their English. Some of the reasons that they come is just to practice English. They've also shared that they've been nervous to practice and have pushed themselves to speak up. So that shows that they're branching out of their comfort zones. We also had one bilingual session. We continue to try and promote using or having sessions bilingually, with the caveat that the faculty members all have a little bit of fluency in both languages. So that first session there is called Border Politics and Immigration, or Política Fronteriza e Inmigración. In this session, we didn't have interpreters. We started to pursue the idea of having an interpreter in the room. And then as the interpreters we worked with explained, it would take up a lot of time to interpret every single sentence or word utterance. And so we decided that it was just going to be the natural environment of bilingualism, where not everyone understands every single word, but it was still a beautiful multicultural setting where there was a lot of explanations. Someone in the room was giving an explanation in the chat, a general explanation of what was being said, so anyone who was maybe a little lost could still keep up. We've also conducted 2 global conversation sessions that are based on the UNESCO's Story Circle practice. This is a structured yet flexible methodology that's focused on developing intercultural competencies in a variety of contexts. It was developed by Darla Deerdorf, a scholar well known for intercultural competence research. And story circles are an intentional way of building intercultural competence through conversation and intentional listening to the stories and experiences of others. Because they require at least 90 minutes, in the past, we've conducted story circles that occur in 2 parts, thereby inviting students to spend more synchronous and intentional time together. And the one that's listed here, short stories as vehicles for intercultural understanding and communication, was one of those story circles. And now bolded at the bottom of this list is one more special session. At the end of this month, we're hosting a session that's called Humanitarian Aid and Disaster Relief, the Role of Communication and Logistics. And this one's designed in response to the devastating earthquakes that occurred in Turkey and Syria in February. So some lessons that we've learned as we've conducted our global conversations for 6 rounds for almost 3 years now. We continue to improve every round with helpful feedback from faculty and staff. We started using closed captions, which is helpful for English language learners to be able to read what is shared. Some faculty tools, which Badavan was just using earlier, using virtual whiteboards like Google Jamboards, Miro, Padlet. These are really helpful ways for students to process their thoughts before responding. So it's helpful for not just English language learners, emergent bilinguals, but also various learning types to put words to paper or virtual whiteboards before sharing, and also so that faculty members can see things that are developing in breakout rooms. So those are really helpful. Also for the faculty to have a flexible agenda. So when students come to the sessions, we don't know how much they're going to participate. We don't know exactly how much they will engage, if they'll turn their cameras on. So faculty members have learned to really be flexible in their facilitation of a conversation and not just prepare, again, for like a lecture or a presentation. One team led students through a collective poem. So they put up on the shared screen a poem that had blanks in it. And then the students, by way of raising their hand, could fill in the blanks, and they created a poem together, something tangible that they could all take with one another. Again, so initially we were just trying to get the students to talk to one another, but now as we've gone into our now 7th round coming up next month, we've encouraged faculty to consider how students might be building intercultural competencies in their session. Something like an empathy map would be a really great way to show students visually and have them reflect about ways that they might be building self-awareness on their different cultures and the cultures of the other students in the room. So as faculty now propose sessions, they're thinking about ways that this intercultural competency framework might be incorporated into the session. These are some screenshots from one of our most successful or just a very successful session. I should note that we don't record the sessions, which is sad because some amazing things happen. But we really encourage students to be themselves, and sometimes the session topics are very personal topics that hit students in a very raw and unique way, and so they might be sharing things that cause them to get very emotional. So I'm not sure, that's why I don't have any screenshots for you from our sessions or any recordings, because we find that students are sometimes inhibited from sharing and from turning their camera on. And so that record button kind of inhibits them even more. But one way to get them engaged is by putting a good warm up in the chat. So there's a screenshot here of what one of our professors from DePaul matched with a professor from Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines. And their session was media consumption in a pandemic world. So just starting out the session by putting a good question in the chat. What news items have you been following closely? It was a way to get students thinking, typing, and then they were invited to talk to one another. So a way to ease into the session. This session was held late at night in Chicago time, which was a morning class for the students in Manila. And so that was a good thing, is when faculty are flexible with their time. And if one of the faculty, if not both, can schedule the global conversation during their class time, that helps, well, for one, force students to come if it's during their class time. And then the other faculty member from DePaul, who held the class at night, just greatly encouraged her students to come. And that worked for her. Some other faculty offer extra credit to their students. Some offer an assignment replacement, so students can avoid one assignment by coming to the global conversation. Another successful part of the global conversation was that the title was descriptive and concise. So students were attracted to the session. They knew what it was about. This particular session, even though it was held between students or between faculty from Chicago in the US and from Manila in the Philippines, there was a number of Brazilian students who signed up simply because the time worked for them. The session was catchy, caught their attention, and so they showed up. Many global conversations have used breakout rooms, and that is a really good way to get students talking to one another. As you probably have seen in many virtual spaces, when there's many squares in a virtual conference room, students may be unable or hesitant to speak up. So by putting them into breakout rooms, got students to turn on their camera and talk to one another. So the bottom image here that is in black and white, what constitutes a healthy media consumption, that's a screenshot from Padlet. And so each of the breakout rooms listed with the student's name there show what they were chatting about as they typed it out in their breakout room. And so that was just a very successful session all over. I want to share with you a couple of quotes. This slide is from students. Our next slide will be from shared from our faculty members, just to show why they came. So the first quote here came from early in the pandemic, but it was quite fitting because we had a lot of students coming to the global conversations in the middle of the night for them. So this first quote, "The pandemic has had me sitting in my bedroom for 7 months straight, and it's exhausting. The idea of listening to new people talk and interact with them motivated me enough to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and attend." The second quote is the question was, what will you remember? And they said, "I remember the openness of the discussions we held. I felt everyone was able to speak their mind judgment-free and could be heard. Lots of great opinions were shared, and I think that's for the benefit of everyone." So a student who's about to participate in the next round emailed me and said, "I wanted to know, is this a debate or a dialogue or a conversation?" And I said, this is not supposed to be a debate, really. I mean, we want to understand the perspective of the other. And so we're not encouraging students to bait any arguments. We really want to just learn more from one another. And then this last quote, again, answered the question, what will you remember? That humans are not machines. So efficiency, ethics, and sustainability is also about taking care of ourselves and taking care of others. It's a learning process. Next, I'll share the faculty quotes. So one of the great byproducts that I guess we weren't really expecting initially, because we wanted the global conversations to be about students, but we also found that it's a really professional development, growing opportunity for faculty. So these are some of our faculty quotes. I'll give you a second just to read them and not read them to you. So as I mentioned earlier, we've had faculty come from 57 different institutions covering every continent, every habitable continent. It's a growing list. We add each round, we add more institutions. Some of the faculty teams have incorporated some industry experts. So we had a screenwriter come and talk to the students just a short bit to talk about a play that they had been working on. We had a lawyer activist participate in the political global conversation called Political Economy of Global Public Health, and a director of a nonprofit. So it's helpful for students to maybe ask some pointed questions to those industry experts and get their ideas and to get some data from them in order to spark the conversation. But one of the byproducts of the global conversations that we found so fascinating was that faculty have continued to work together with some of the team members that they didn't know before. So as I mentioned, some of the faculty teams know each other and propose a session at the same time, but there have been a few instances where we found sessions overlapped in the proposal reviewing session. Some of the sessions overlapped in topics, and so we made teams, and then those faculty members have now continued to work together in various areas. That doesn't happen every time, but some of the sessions have resulted in good new professional partnerships. And so one of those, I'll pretty much end there, but one of the great things that DePaul does in addition to the global conversations is we have virtual exchange programs and workshops. So some of the faculty members we've gathered along the way that are from outside DePaul, also from DePaul, our own institution, have now been encouraged to do virtual exchange and do a sustained project in their class. So DePaul offers a 3-week workshop to train faculty members, and it requires roughly 20 hours of work. It's hosted within our learning management system and facilitated by our Center for Teaching and Learning and our Global Engagement Department. It works for faculty all over the world because there are 5 asynchronous modules where faculty can work on their own. And then there's 3 synchronous meetings that are recorded. They're held right about now in the US morning time, and they're recorded. So if faculty are in a time zone that isn't awake at that time, they can view that later. So I will stop there. I think I'm over my time, but wanted to see if there were any questions.